expect you to all live in vacuum.
Okay, any other, so, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained?
Congratulations.
So, just knowing what her current position is, that's gonna be a hard position to fill.
Those are almost exactly the words that I said to the high school.
Can I just ask about the mentoring? Because you teach some classes.
I teach the
Foods.
mentoring, I teach a foods class, and I teach a running start, child development.
Child development. Is there any thought about keeping any of that at all, like the mentoring? Does that go with guidance at all, or that is not? No.
I
Okay.
would say no. No.
Oh,
Not in the guidance department.
right. I mean, I
A separate
wouldn't
teacher
doubt it, but I
does.
thought I'd ask.
Huh?
They've gone
Nice try.
2 to 1, right.
So the running start, your child development would be really difficult to replace because of the qualifications. That's probably the hardest part.
I mean, and, is our middle school life skills teacher certified at the high school level in terms of, foods, for example?
She has a full course of
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
4th, 5th, and 6th grade, which are not
Seventh and
required.
eighth grade.
Seventh
I
and
know,
eighth grade.
7th and 8th grade,
Well,
but
we
4th,
have,
5th, and 6th
let's
are
just say,
required.
we're gonna have to look at all of that, and I'm really not in a position to tell you. I don't know, off the top of my head, I can't remember what the certification is, but I don't think there's a reason she perhaps couldn't do it, but that's not the question you wanna ask. Is this a position that the person wants to teach and is suited to teach? That's the other part of the question you have to look at. And
Well, then it's also is, how hard is it to combine, I mean, Rosie's a special person, to combine a mentoring instructor and a consumer science child development instructor. It's not a typical, doesn't seem like it's necessarily a typical,
Yeah, well, I have both
Position.
certifications, so I have my master's and I have a certification in the K through 12 guidance, but I also have a certification in the family and consumer science.
so is
Yeah.
it the guidance certification that allows you to do mentoring? Or what would the
No.
qualifications have to be to be a mentoring?
Right, I mean, that's the same
Instructor.
thing I'm thinking is, are the different things that you do, should we
guess
think
that's-
about splitting them apart and not losing any of them, but are they necessarily gonna be a one-person?
Well, because we've
Bill.
also lost the internship program. There's nobody currently filling that, right? So
What do you
No, the
mean?
guidance department's
The
actually
guidance department's taking
that
over,
back,
okay.
yeah. We currently have a few for those.
So that'll be a very interesting conversation for you guys to figure out how this is all gonna work.
Yeah, no, I'd like to hear, I'd like the administrators to look at it and
I
See what
have
happens
some
with them.
thoughts, but I think I should probably talk to you two first. And
we
see
need
what
to
you
do
think.
some head scratching and thinking and talking about this before we're prepared to answer a lot of in-depth questions from all of you.
We don't wanna make Bob's last days here easy.
I don't make anybody's last days here easy.
It's not our job.
I know.
Right. But for now, we're not gonna post the exact same position, we'll let you think about.
Truthfully, I don't know what we post right now.
Right, okay, we'll try to come up with some good thoughts and bring it to the next meeting.
Yeah.
And I had one
But rest
question.
assured, we're not talking about eliminating the mentorship program, I can just imagine
Yeah,
the backlash.
don't start that rumor.
We are not,
It's too easy to get them going.
right, exactly. This is not an attempt to eliminate anything.
I wanted to ask, just on item 4, you're talking about training for Narcan. I'm not sure who the individuals are, but do we carry Narcan at the school?
No, we don't. And these are individuals who wanted the training for their own personal use
Thank you.
after school.
Good. I'm happy.
With that said,
Oops.
there are 2 high schools currently that do have it. They train staff. It's available over the counter now. And I've just requested,
What kind of over there?
It's not over the
You
counter,
have
it's
to
a
ask the
standing order.
pharmacist. Right.
well, it's available, it's not, you don't have to go crazy to try to find out a way to get it, but that's not my point. I just received today, at my request, from Berlin School policy on Narcan use in the schools administration. They're committed to moving in this direction. They've worked with a large number of agencies in the North Country to develop the policy. It's the first policy that's been developed in the state. So I'm going to look at that. And I don't know, where I come down on any of this. Truthfully, I haven't thought enough about it. But the bottom line, we talked about it as a group of superintendents last week, and the bottom line is if you have an opportunity to save somebody's life, and it requires a little bit of training and a willingness to pass a policy and deal with it, up front with your community, isn't it worth it? When you look at the numbers of people that are dying.
Does the school nurse carry and administer an EpiPen if necessary?
EpiPens? Oh yeah, we have those in stock in the schools.
Do we, are there the schools? I think that
No,
only.
no, I've got
Individual.
a child
No,
that needs an
it's-
EpiPen, yes.
You have to.
Well,
buy
the
them.
indi-
You have to
individual
bring
stuff-
them.
We supply them.
This will be the first district. I was, frankly, I made an assumption, I probably shouldn't have, but this is the first school district I've worked in where the nursing staff does not stock EpiPens for emergency use in the school.
If you forgot his EpiPen.
Yeah, is there a reason why we don't,
He can
why
go
we
to
don't
Kayla.
stock them?
Yeah,
I
there's
just
enough
have
kids
all-
reaching
I
out.
I assumed that we did, because
Yeah,
every
why-
place
why
I've
don't-
ever been,
he doesn't have one in the
I've never
office, in
seen
his
it,
office?
not done.
None in the middle school.
I didn't really,
It's big,
They
I
carry it
think
on,
it's
yeah.
because it's, it may be a nurse licensing, because they're making the I'm all for it. I think it's horrifying to think that somebody could have an unexpected reaction, and I've been told that even if the nurse has another child's EpiPen, they can't use it if there's somebody having anaphylaxis in front of them. So I'm not necessarily thinking that's
Is
smart.
that something that we
But-
could have brought back to?
We can look at,
Because
I will
that
definitely
is
look into that.
certainly
I mean,
news to me.
I have an EpiPen.
And I think it's great that kids have them, but it can save a life, and that's where I was going with the idea. I am not a,
But there are, nursing license issues and, so you just have to look into it.
But
See.
there are, schools do have the ability to stock them. I mean, I've filled orders for them, I've signed purchase orders for years. And they're in the nurse's office under lock and key, but they're there if there's an emergency. So anyway, we'll look into that. I
think Narcan should be the same
well,
thing.
That's what I was going to say.
I kinda do too, but
I just say, we spend a lot of time talking about safety and security, and this seems like, we don't wanna wait till we lose a kid, or an
Right.
anaphylactic reaction, or have brain damage, because it took 10 minutes before the ambulance could get here and give them an epi shot. This has gotta be fixed immediately, and as soon as possible, and it should be a simple fix, I think, and it needs to be worth, because after it's too late, you can't go back.
that's
and the
right.
Narcan I put on the list,
We have a chance to fix this now at the right time.
I mean,
so the reason I brought it up,
Sorry about that.
the reason I brought it up is, I would like to be sure that we're handling that in the proper way. I mean, these they expire. I mean, just buying them, putting them on the shelf, forgetting it doesn't work. We need to have a program set up to make sure that they're appropriate and they're maintained and the whole 9 yards. And don't forget, we do have them up the street, phone call away. So we have up in the back, we have EpiPens on the ambulance. We've got 3 ambulances, and we can be here reasonably quickly with all of that stuff.
2 minutes.
If you get through dispatch.
Yeah, no, I agree with having it, okay.
It can take time.
Yeah. So, who did we miss? Mr. Phillips, would you like to turn at it?
I don't know if you-
Provide the board with the report. A couple of things to highlight, and add a few new things is, this is where preparing for administering both the NECAP and the SBAC. I just think it's interesting to note the amount of instructional time that's lost while we're doing that. SBAC is going to require the use of eight days per grade. We're scheduled 4 days for math, 4 days for ELA. And on top of that, we will need to administer the NECAP, New England Comprehensive Assessment, in science for both 4th and 8th graders, and that'll require 2 days as well. So it's a significant amount of instructional time is being dedicated to that. The other piece I'll just mention on the PACE grant, we had 3 faculty and Administration worked with Sandy Kent of DOE, performance-based assessment. This was last week, depth of knowledge, Green's taxonomy. And we're preparing for next Friday, the in-service where the folks from Pittsfield schools are coming up to talk with us about their experience with competency-based education or assessment. And they'll be answering questions that many of our staff have as we're moving in that direction. We're also making plans for sending 2 teams to some summer trainings this year to bring us up to speed. So in addition to that, interestingly, we mentioned Saturdays. In the next month, Jim Kinder is going to be taking the KIP kids to a leadership conference on a Saturday. And 2 of our history teachers will be bringing students to World History Day in Plymouth on April 2nd. And kind of on a fun note, today the 6th grade sponsored what's called Pi Day. And there were a lot of round objects in the school. We had every 6th grader lined up. The number for pi goes out to infinity. Well, every kid had a number, and they had a competition to see who could recite how many decibels in pi. And the teacher who organized it was awarded at the end of the day with a pie of whipped cream. That's to her. So Erin Newton gets a lot of credit for being a good sport on that, but it was a good experience, and the kids are looking at the history of pi, the area of the circle, understanding the symbols. Kind of a fun event. The other thing I would share is we had some unanticipated funds left in Title I this year. And one area of concern that I've had is that we've had kids receiving Title I services in 4th grade. They've moved on to 5th and they haven't gotten any support. So there was a small amount of funds available for the balance of this school year. There's no promises for next year. So we have had a licensed teacher working as an instructional aide providing those services this year. At least for the balance of this year, we can reimburse her as a teacher, which she's qualified for. It allows us to bring in a half-time instructional aide for the rest of this year to serve those 5th graders that have been dropped off the Title I roles. And then, went over this with Lori Melanson a couple of weeks ago. We were glad to see that there was still enough funds available to bring some Chromebooks into the 4th and 5th grade where we've had a shortage of technology. So that's new information. It's just unfolded since the last board meeting, but I wanted you to be aware of that. That's it.
Thank you.
I have a question, only because my child is going. Did you ever ask the ANC trip that KIP is doing? Did you ever bring to the board the overnight ANC trip?
No, I haven't received any info on that yet, so.
Because Jim's had the kids sign up for it, because it's April 1st and, April 10th and 11th.
We already submitted paperwork.
Yeah, and paid.
We have a gap in communication. So I will bring that forward as soon as I have it, and I can email it to the board.
Do you want me to?
When is the trip?
April 10th and 11th, so they leave on Sunday and they come back on Monday. And it's the KIP kids. Yeah.
We can do it now.
I mean, the leadership program is fantastic. They go up to the lodge and they do leadership training.
Can we get a second then?
Sure, second.
Sure.
So it's moved and seconded.
Last year they went to Vera Vista, and this year they're going up to ANC Hut.
Okay.
Jim said it's cheaper, but it's
Thanks
still,
for bringing that up.
it's still the it's still the Vera Vista people. And it was just a huge learning experience for the KIP kids. And it's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And I know there's a limit, but I don't know what the limit is on how many. And I do know, I believe it's Mrs. Harris, Mr. Kinder, Mrs. Butler, Mrs. Scholander that are going.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Invitations have gone out and they needed to be returned by March 28th.
Right.
I wasn't aware of the date.
Wasn't it 11th?
I don't know. Casey just said I had to fill it out and get it back for the
Yeah,
day.
we had to arrive at school at 7:30, so we could pass that in. I
Did
think
you
it's
say
11
Mr.
kids.
Phillips was going on it too?
Mr. Kinder.
No. I just want, in case he wanted to
Let them know.
Yeah.
So we have it moved and seconded approval to, for that trip. Any other comments?
Can I just About that, never mind.
About the trip?
No, it's about his